So by way of introduction to that, I'd like to introduce Danny Hawes, who was, and again, since we haven't had the official big formal press release, although it was on television, KUIT covered it. But Danny, obviously, you guys saw him do well in the racing side of things, but he also won in terms of the overall date, in terms of Challenge 2, and that therefore took him into the overall championship. So Danny Hawes, our first overall drone data race winner. And so asked him to come and just talk to us a bit today about what he's been doing as far as his drone work, but then also give you guys a little bit of an intro to 107.
Thank you, Sean. The race was really fun. It was my first race. I've never done that kind of thing before, and when I saw those hoops that you guys are setting, I'm like, what are you guys doing? But you're right. When I started getting in the middle of the track, you couldn't. I'm very used to line of sight and watching what I'm doing and not relying on the screen and no noise or anything. So once I got halfway out to go through those hoops and seeing the first race, the wind was real calm and I felt like I got a little bit better, but that second run you saw the wind flapping and there's about a second or delay on your screen, so I felt like I backed up and went out a little bit just to get that view again, because I kind of lost where I was because the wind was I had the stick a little bit always to the left because the wind was pushing me to the right. And then after that, I felt pretty good after that. And when you hit the mountain, you felt the wind kind of push you against the mountain, but you just kind of adjusted. But those hoops, just light them on fire just to make it a little bit harder next time, I guess. And they are going to make some options later. If not already, I haven't tested it where you can stream live, either through YouTube or Facebook, and it's an option on your screen when you're flying to go live, and it'll start recording. Through that. So I don't know if that's something to test out or the reception over there, how well it is, but it's going to take quite orchestrating because you'll have to get the cameras to go to hub and someone's going to have to orchestrate it to make it, if you want it live. Post-process you can make it look really good, but live's a whole different story. But but thank you. I was real nervous with those hoops, but I had a lot of fun. Cool. And that was my first manual survey. My goal was to kind of get up there, and I had a mission planned out, and I popped it into auto mission. It's like, no, air, you're not going to do it. So I'm like, all right, let's just put the top down, and I'll just manually mow the lawn, and so that was my first time doing a manual survey, not relying on a mission, but I followed the same kind of practices it does, and it worked. I wish I got some better shots, but the time to it really gets you going and your checklist down your head pretty quick, so I appreciate being limited to it because it puts you to the test.
And then that really is the test, I think, of if a car overturned or the fire is coming, you usually don't have a huge amount of time. One, and then two, I think I really also like the fact that that our little quads that just buzzed out there and came back in a minute and a half actually accurately could count the barrels. So I think that shows that even when we have more time, we can make more elegant maps and interpretation. But even just the quick lightning. This technology is to the point now where that's all you really need, at least for the first pass information, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so great race, and I'm looking forward to next year, and the more competition. Even just watching it was cool. And you're right, my family, you guys don't want to go. I don't know how I'm gonna have a blast, but we brought our 7 in, and they had fun, and so thank you. Yeah. So Sean asked me to kind of come. He's like, "How'd you get started with drones?" So I'm like, "Well, let's talk about it." So I put a little presentation together, and I've been in tinkering with stuff for a long time. In grade school, I messed with remote control cars a lot, and down to going to the hobby store and saying I would like to build something, whether it's soldering or whatever. So he sold me a kit where you go home and it has the frame, and you put the speed control in, you put the motor in, you put the flywheel in. You always get the bigger tires, the bigger motor and stuff. The only thing you really couldn't upgrade was the speed control. Back in those days, it was analog, and it would send power to this little thing that touched electricity, and the farther it'd go, the faster the car would go. Well, the problem with that is I had it was these little RC cars. problem with that is I never followed the first rule is don't pass the first street sign in the street because it didn't stop. It kept going. and so you're like, oh, hold on, I'll be right back. And I ended up under my neighbor's car. And you had to get there quick because it's still going. And it'll either burn up your motor or the flywheel will start, the teeth will start tearing off. On the flywheel. So I was under a lot of my neighbors' cars, but those were the days I drank out of their hoses too and caught the sunshine, and we were outside, playing hockey a lot. So I did that in my teenage years and kept a lot of repairs. And I bring this up because in the long run, it's almost the same technology that are in drones, but a little couple pieces between the battery and the brains now. So spent a lot of time outside doing those stuff, and I want to say that late 80s, early 90s, and then something got invented that kind of tore me off the street. It was video games. So NES kind of came out, and I started playing video games, and Mario Brothers, Zelda. I think Street Fighter 2 was one of my favorite. Contra. I overheated my Excite-Bike I don't know how many times. So I bring this up because later on down the line, it did take me out off the streets. But my hand-eye coordination, I want to say, when I'm doing that first-person kind of shooter games these days, or even back in when they first came out, it's helping me do video in the sky. Because the controls, it's almost like an Xbox controller that you're holding. Even the same fingers, the same buttons, the same controllers, and you even set the sensitivity so you can keep your kill to death ratio up. So I really am using that a lot with the hand-eye coordination. You even can put a little X on your DJI screen and kind of simulate it. And so I had a lot of fun playing video games, and it's really helping me fly today.
I would say so in the 90s, the folks that we knew that were the ROV pilots for Embari, they would go and they would bigger robots than ours, but they would go down deep, and they wouldn't be on missions all the time, so they'd only be on missions sometimes. And what they would do on their off days, they would actually go to video arcades and play video games because a lot of the certain video games, because the controls are very, very similar. So that's not just a passing fancy. That's, I think, a common observation with people that sort of looking at the screen and then articulating your hands, not in front of your face, but sort of down your lap kind of thing. Is really,
absolutely. I will do that to warm up sometimes. Now that skipping ahead, now that there are affordable drones that you can go out on your patio, they used to, kind of skipping ahead, they used to only be able to fly indoors. Buy a little helicopter and be IR bouncing off, and you couldn't go outdoors and explore more. But yes, I think that was your really only choice, was to go to your liquor store, because liquor stores always had one arcade. And I don't know how many times I spent hours and hours at Circle K, playing Street Fighter, trying to beat it on 1/4. But yeah, that was really our only choice. Then I started tinkering. I think out of high school, and just right out of high school, I went to ITT Tech and learned about resistors and circuit boards, and that was very interesting. Then I started working for a low voltage company that had to do with fire alarms, phone systems. And the reason I bring this up, because when you build drones or repair drones, it's almost the same kind of rhythm. It's a 0 or a 1. It's a red or a white wire. Solder this to A to B. So this really helped me, and I appreciated the low voltage end of the electrician side of my career because it was small wires, a lot of small things. So your dexterity had to be very good. For the higher voltage electrician, same kind of thing, but it was a lot bigger. ITT is, I heard, no longer around anymore, but I want to say that they were a good part of my life. I continued to play video games. When I was making this PowerPoint, I had them there, and I showed my wife. She goes, "You have like 4 or 5 more of those slides, right?" Because they're addicting, and the games just start getting better and better. And I can't say, I do get rusty every once in a while. If I don't play for a week or two, I'm not very good at Counter-Strike or this or that. Same with flying. If I don't fly for a month or something, I get kind of rusty. So I think continuing playing and keeping that muscle memory up helped me. And how did I do that? Indirectly, before I knew I was going to be flying drones commercially, was through this. So I did start it all with RC cars, and if you ask someone, that's a hobby. Then when they became more popular, to the right is that just a little small helicopter. You can only fly them in the house. And I would try to, once I got my orientations down, I'd practice my figure eights, at least once a day. And I got better and better. I'd try to land it on the, like the ceiling fan or something like that. And a good story, eBay was around getting popular, and I found this helicopter, first one that goes outdoors. I'm like, I gotta do it, I gotta get it, because I've never flown one outdoors yet, because you couldn't. It was $35, very simple, it came in the mail, you put it together, rubber bands, hitting this way, and it's just very simple. I think I was just dating my wife, we're still dating, lived at my parents' house. Said, hey, there's a park up the street, let's go up the street. Put it all together, get it all synced and the remote and everything. And we go to the park, no one's around, except for one person behind us. He was sitting on the bench and he was kind of watching us. Get it all together, we do a countdown, we look around, we're like, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit a tree, blew up. So I lasted maybe 4 seconds, and the guy on the bench, he was laughing hysterically. He was just busting up. So that's what made me fall in love with helicopters and flying. That was my first flight outside, and I think I gave myself credit when I was telling the story the other day. I think I lasted 15 seconds. No, I lasted about 5, went straight up, hit some branches, but I bought another one. And then I bought another one. But it was the hobby. They're only, 30, 40, 50 bucks. I don't think I ever spent over 100 bucks on these little guys, because the prices fluctuate on you. But I started getting comfortable with them. And then, I've been at the university for about 11 years now, and I kind of moved careers from public safety to events, and now I'm a property coordinator in procurement. But my wife and I try to take my son to Disneyland once a year, and it's Friday after Monday, and we said, hey, how can we earn some extra income to do this vacation? And they're like, hey, let's maybe start a side business. And I call it, I drew the shorter straw. And we said, what are you good at? I'm like, well, I can fly these things. So we took that route. So that's, I think, the point when I went from hobby to commercial. And instead of just flying for fun, I really said, well, what is it going to take to fly commercial? So we did our city, our county and the state process, just the normal business stuff. Then I learned how social media was so important to get the word out what you're doing. So we got our web page, got the Instagram going, the Facebook. I learned what the hashtagging was all about. It's really important. I wasn't sold on it until later, but it is, and it's working. And then working with the government, the FAA. At the time that I was trying to get into this field, or got in this field, I think I call it the beginning of the wagon, if not before the wagon was even built. Because there was drones have been around a long time, helicopters, they've been used for commercial use a long, long time, but they're just now getting worse. Everybody wants to do it, for lack of better words. So the FAA heavily got involved because it's very, once you start flying for money, and you're flying in the air, there's some rules about that. And you had to submit something to the FAA saying, hey, I want to fly commercially, but I can't wear a seatbelt flying a drone. So you had to submit for a 333 waiver, and it waives some of the stuff that you can't do commercially because they're black and white. It's only planes flying commercially. So part of the 333 exemption was to fly commercially drones, and literally one of the things are, okay, you don't have to wear a seatbelt because I know it says in the rules you have to here. Then it covers some other stuff, you have to learn about the air. You have to pretty much have your pilot license to have this 333. And at first I was really against it, like I'm just a hobbyist, I'm just gonna go fly, I'm just taking a photograph landing. I don't wanna do all this FAA stuff. And they didn't budge, and they said, you got to. So I did, and I actually take it all back. I'm glad that I did. You learned about weather, you learned about sectional charts, you learned about the air talk lingo, and you just learned how to be safe in the air, and you didn't realize what they can do. And I wanna say, out of everything, the most thing I'm worried about is all the time is helicopters. Because they can fly really low, they can pop out of mountains if you can't hear them. So I'm glad that the FAA tries to teach you a lot of book studies behind that. What they don't teach you is stick time. I think they're going to do that later, maybe down the line, but to get these approvals, you don't have to have any fly time. You just got to know the rules of the air.
Now, Now you don't have that.
Um,
Good amount, right?
Yeah, and you know, a couple hours under the stick time, you know, wouldn't be a bad thing. Because when you start commercial and you're doing business as your LLC, you got a lot of responsibilities and a lot of risk. So yeah, that's the last thing. And they are computers still in the air. You might have a blue screen of death. That's not even your fault. And the drone might fall from the air and you did nothing wrong. So you just got to learn about all those rules to make sure no one gets hurt. Then I did the networking thing, and I joined the Camarillo Chamber, the Business and Technology Partnership at CSU Channel Islands, and the CI Condors, and it's really cool. President Beck uses this all the time, and I think it's so cool. But I snuck in on campus. I got my waiver on campus because this is in Class D airspace. And actually, I didn't have my waiver at this time. I snuck in before 7 o'clock before it turned into D airspace. But they printed this out for me. I thought that was really neat. It was a nice little morale booster for me. But she uses it on all her PowerPoint presentations. But that made me want to get more involved in the school and ask how I can help, like advance me out or even Sean out for these kind of things. But definitely say networking is very important.
What's Class D? What do you mean? What is that?
Oh, so when you go through the FAA school, they teach you about airspace, and I actually have a slide I'll show you guys. But one of those things that they teach you about are sectional charts, and it is a very complex chart that only tells you what airspace is. And when you look at this area right in this longitude and latitude, we fall in the Camarillo Airport airspace, and it's about 5 nautical miles. We're like 4.85 miles out from it. And their airspace is class, they call it Delta, but D airspace. And that means there's a certain criteria, certain rules. Like you can't fly from surface to this point without their permission, commercially or hobby. So they just want to know those kind of things. And Class D, which means kind of a smaller airport. Class B means like a big airport, LAX. And when you see those things on the sectional chart, you look at the keynotes and those will be the rules about the area. And I'll show you a little bit more visual on that. So going from also a hobby to commercial, I had to learn a lot of new things, and I had to research what hardware that would fit my needs that I need. And for one thing that I had to learn that I wasn't very good at was Adobe. And this is more in my photographer and videographer world, because I was really focused at the very beginning on real estate. That's kind of what, hey, I can make money taking pictures of houses. So I learned some Photoshop, and I got some commercial hardware. I did fly like a 3DR solo before, and that just kind of wasn't cutting it for me. The reason I went with this drone is because mostly the camera. The camera has full aperture priority. It can go down to 1.7, more than a GoPro. This is more what I call, lack of better, more professional than a GoPro. It has a 4/3 lens. You can change out the lens, and you can actually control all the settings in the air too. So night and day difference from my hobby drones moving up to this. This is not necessarily the highest end of commercial grade drone you get, but it was what I could afford that was commercial grade. It does geotag all the photos, which I do need for surveying. It kind of does both of worlds for me. Flying through hoops wasn't my goal of this guy. That's my nervous part, but it's very. You could tell the difference from a hobby drone, a Phantom, compared to this next up. It's more responsive, more stable, more just reliable. I really like it. The new drones coming out have better software in it, so I can't speak for the ones that came out last week, but I heard they're catching up. So that's another thing about drones, the technology. Every 6 months something comes out new, and you just got to keep up with them. But I'm very happy with this. This is Aspire 1 Pro, and I'm very happy with it. And there's 2 controllers. One person can control the camera, the other person can fly. It's actually a really hard with 2 people. I thought it'd be easier with someone. But if you're not syncing up with each other, it's like swimming or running together. It's very difficult to work with someone else. I'd rather do it on my own sometimes. But anyways, that's what I chose to go. But like I said, I had to learn Adobe, and the reason I learned that you have to stitch some photos together sometimes, or you have to do content aware, or you want to take a sunspot out of this, just make it more visibly just look better. So I put this one on because those are about 4 or 5 pictures taken, just stitched together and make a panorama. And I just learned that through Adobe. I tried some other free software, but in the long run, Adobe was what I liked a lot.
And I think so that seems to be a theme. I don't know if you guys are noticing this, that there are free options, and you guys should know about the free options, and sometimes those are cool. But oftentimes for the caliber of work that we're trying to do, not always, but oftentimes the commercial options are the way you're going to want to go. They either have more options, or they have more controls, or they have more analysis routines, or whatever it is. So I think sometimes when you guys are starving student mode, it's like, oh my God, the free version, we should do that. And if it meets your needs, that's awesome. That's great. But do realize that a lot of times to do the things that we sometimes are wanting to do, you could possibly do it the free, but it'll take you 7 hours or something. Whereas if you can buy the commercial thing, you can do it in 7 minutes, and that is usually much more valuable than burning days and days and days on things.
The only thing valuable I can say to that too is when you are doing the 7 hours versus 7 minutes, you're learning everything behind the scenes. When I started first doing mission surveying, you had to plan it down to the centimeters per second to convert it to how many feet per second to how long the mission was to make sure you didn't run out of battery, all before you lift it off, or it'd ruin the whole things, because I didn't have a camera that geotagged. I had to do that all afterwards. So I'm glad that I learned off the free stuff at first, but once you start wanting to streamline and you go commercial and your time is money, definitely invest in that, because you're going to save 100 times your time and tenfold. So one of my first commercial photo worlds was to do Fillmore school districts, and I bring this up because I was getting pretty good at Photoshop, and I took this photo from, and it was a bracket shots, 3 photos put together to get more data. But he said, hey, you see that baseball field over there? Can you make grass on it? I'm like, you want digital grass? I'm like, Photoshop can do anything. Let's see what I can do. And then lo and behold, we figured out how to pick grass on thing, and it wasn't too bad. It was so that football was artificial, right in Fillmore. But it's just with the drought and everything, they let their grass die. But they were hanging these on their principal walls, and they wanted something, hey, can you make it look like 'tis the season? So that's why Adobe did that for us. And I am Google taught. I do admit a lot of my things I do Google it. Sometimes I choose the 2-minute videos versus the 14-minute videos, depending on our time. But that's another difference I think with the paid versions, is you have all these hidden features in there you didn't even know you had. And Adobe's been around for a while. And then I also do the video editing through there, but I didn't put anything on here for that. So that was one fun thing to do. Another thing that I researched is, hey, I heard you can take a bunch of photos and make a big survey map, 1-to-1 ratio with the Earth. How do you do that? Through software. And so throughout my thing, I did a lot of free rendering software. There's like 123D. I think, a couple other free softwares out there. And as students, you guys can do Autodesk and all that things. If you have an email for up to 4 years, I think you get full access. So definitely poke around with that. There's other software with a lot better features you guys have access to, but if you don't have time, Autodesk is the way to go, because you guys get it for free. But I got into 3D modeling, and ultimately I think I'm gonna, out of my favorite one of software, I tried Drone Deploy, tried Autodesk, Pix4D. I signed up for that 15-day trial. And the first 5 minutes of just the reporting it gave me blew my mind away. I don't know why I never went Pix4D before, and I see the surveys of a lot of people use it more than other ones, but I'm sold on it. I think that's my
unsolicited recommendation.
Yeah. I'm gonna hashtag Pix4D after this. But no, they're great, and just the data, all the data that they give you. I don't know if the other companies can do that, or if they hide it from you, or they can leave that an option. But it's very valuable. I got into 3D. This is the farm over at Fillmore. And this is at Fillmore School Farm, and I said, hey, let's do a survey of your farm, because they weren't quite sure. They have 3 fields right there. they weren't quite sure what the acres were and the conditions of everything. So this is just one pass through, about 180 photos put together. I did this one through Drone Deploy, I believe, and they loved it. The accuracy on it was down to, I think, a 4 centimeter pixels, which is pretty good. Let's see, what we did is, so this was the ortho photo of it, and just the highlighted areas were telling how much land they have. That orange line was saying, hey, here's how long your road is to here. And that little red, just small little red dot, they had a dirt pile up there, and they had their measurements of it, and we did the measurements of it digitally, and it almost equaled the same volume as they had. So they might use this for emergency management and map all their schools, because they got construction going on, and they want to map exit routes for all the schools. And that was just because of just doing a little demo on their farmland. And so I'm very interested to see how that turns out. We hopefully can do that this summer. They're kind of up in the air about it. But yeah, they're going to use it for emergency planning. You can also, like I said, gathering all this data, you can take measurements a lot quicker than you could before on foot. So in addition to this 3D software, you can do volume measuring. And this is just a sample through Pix4D of an area, and you just kind of highlight it, and it knows those pixels and the depths, and it gives you the data behind it. This Sunday I'm going to CSU LA because there's a piece of property over there that they need some contour lines for, and they're experimenting with drones. So I told them I'd do it for them. So contour lines are becoming a valuable part for this data gathering, at least in the construction world. Then part of the process to go from hobby to commercial is 107. The FAA, I call it the DMV test. You know, in a nutshell, you're learning the rules of the road, but in the air, and they want you to know the written part only. So they give you some study material, almost same format as the DMV, and you go to their office. You take a test in the testing room, 75% above, just like the DMV. You pass, and you get what you call a Part 107. I had a 333 exemption, but 107 really replaced that. 333 is obsolete now. 107 is a lot easier to use and practice with. And they also, when drones started getting popular, even as a hobbyist, you have to register. What they teach you about weather. Not just, I might have learned this in grade school and totally forgot about it, but they teach you about wind fronts, wind conditions, UV index. UV, a lot of people, if you have high UVs, it could mess with your GPS on your drone. Even I heard of some cases it might even fry your board. Never seen it in person, but I heard it in the social media. Just anything 6, 7, 8 or above, you know, just kind of be careful with your GPS. They'll teach you about downwind, upwind, and that'll kind of make you realize to help you kind of return to home and with the wind conditions, or even pre-fly like today. You guys had a lot of gusts and you kind of knew that, so why head out there if you know it's going to be like that? So always about weather, and they teach you a lot more resources to use to learn about weather, and it's more either live weather or forecasted weather. But they have you use their weather resources, and that's where you have to learn their air talk, their air lingo, because they do not use English. They use some sort of alien code that you have to learn, but it says a lot in one little sentence. It's just a lot of matrix in there. So this is what you're kind of talking. These are class spaces, and they just made this real quick. And what the reason why these cones are getting bigger as they go up, because the airspace is getting more restricted as you go up. It tells each class D, C, B, and E. Really the only area that has a pilot or a drone pilot that you don't have to worry about airspace is class G. And in my mind, they kind of tell you G means go for it, just fly. As long as you have that visibility and all your weather conditions, your checklist is good, don't worry about planes. Always have the right of way if they do come in your area, because they still can. but you're okay. You don't need any extra permissions. So this is a little cheat sheet on whether you have to get the extra approvals, because when you get your 107, they're just saying you can fly commercially. You have to get extra waivers if they're in additional spaces. Can't fly at night without a waiver. There's some extra stuff you have to do there, but they are starting to release a lot more night waivers out there. Sectional charts. This is actually a zoom. I learned not to zoom in on sectional charts because you don't catch the whole story, but this one is zoomed in. This is Camarillo Airport, and we are probably, can you see my little cursor up there? We're probably, if I'm, yeah, right around here somewhere, I think. All the V's are called Victor highways. Those are where you see the planes. Those are little highways for the planes to go everywhere. 3 numbers means something different than the 2 numbers. So Victor 25 is different from Victor 299 at different altitudes. It might mean surface to, I don't remember off the top of my head. It might mean this to that. And it's 2 miles wide. So that's why you see all the planes following these same routes, because they're following these routes. The little magenta shade out there is telling you, hey, anything inside this is Class E. And anything in that circle is going to be Class D. And these are the pre-plannings you have to do when you fly commercially, especially if it's in an area like this, because it's telling a whole story to you. And if you do fall in these areas, you got to submit a little extra waiver to them, and it takes up to 90 days to get it back. And in my business world, that's real hard, because a lot of people want to. No, don't have to pay for the waiver. Except for 107, you got to pay for it. It's about $200. But for these additional waivers, no, it's just time. And on the business things, they want to get the work done next week or within 2 weeks. 90 days is a long time to convince someone if they don't know that process. So I have lost a couple of clients that wanted it the next day, but it's right in the middle of Camarillo or on the span wherever. But it's just I haven't gone rogue yet. I'm waiting for those waivers to come in. This is just a little bit more about the FAA. You got to be 13 years old. Just the criteria. Once you guys start this process and you guys go this route, it's 101. Though they're going to cover this 100 times with you guys. And if you guys want to see me afterwards or email me, I can give you my study material, everything that my bookmarks and everything, or we can go get a cup of coffee and we can talk about it anytime. What's up?
Just kind of learning the timeline of all these events, kind of like when you thought of the idea of the business and then actually started the business.
Great. So I want to say about 2 years ago, I drew that straw, and I started my portfolio building right away. And then I started the 333 process because that was our only choice back then, which is kind of be irrelevant now. I had to wait 7 months, maybe 8 months to get my 333. It took. I submitted it when there were about 500 people in the nation that had it. I was about 3,000, and then they stopped making 333s. I think around the 5,000 mark because Part 107 came out. So that was a major delay with me because I didn't want to go rogue. I wanted to wait for my certificate. I almost got my hot air balloon pilot license because you had to have some sort of pilot license.
It's cheaper than the airplane.
So yeah, because it was so the DMV written part and the schooling I took was a couple $100, but once you start flying in the air, it turns into a couple $1,000. And so how do you become a pilot? I can either be an ultralight but hot air balloon, where a lot of people were doing that. We're just hobbyists, not pilots, trying to get this to fly commercially using this 333. So after everything got settled, they're like, okay, let's put 333 to the side. Let's do Part 107. You only need your written now. So that's why I'm saying you don't need to hop in a hot air balloon now or a plane. You just take this written, and the next day you can fly commercially. What I hope they do apply next year is maybe some stick time. That'd be I think a good benefit for all around. These are basic rules that you follow. Fly during the day. Make sure you guys stay under 400 feet. When I was a hobbyist and I was flying those little drones can go above 400 feet. I don't know how much damage they can do that. If they did hit something that high in the air, but really follow that 400 foot. Wall. I can't say how important that is because I've learned that the reason why they say 400 feet, because helicopters are 500 feet in most areas, and small planes are about 1,000 feet and above. But what I learned are pilots are humans too. Sometimes they're flying at 400 feet,
Yep.
not knowing it, or
Or lower.
350 feet. And they're helicopter, and I say helicopter, I pick on them because they can hover, and they can do those kind of neat little things that planes can't. So they'll be in those areas that you'll probably be. And most of the time you do hear them coming, you're going to grow that little, just right when you hear it, you're going to start just going down naturally, looking around. But sometimes they'll pop out of a canyon because you just didn't hear it, the sound was going the other way or something, and they're right there. So that's why just be careful in the 400 feet, and just be aware of your surroundings, especially around here with the crop dusting too. Oh, that got cut off. So I put these, so in the past 2 years, after I got my 333, I got into social media. I got a couple jobs with VC Star. That one to the left was a article on Lake Casitas on how low the water was. And to the right is the Camarillo directory. It hasn't came out yet, but it's going to come out this summer. But that's my picture on the front cover. And they're going to use a couple other photos through that book. Of my photos, and that was because that connection was through the Camarillo Chamber. That was one of the networks that I joined, and I go to their breakfasts. I'm trying to do that networking thing. I can't make it to all their events, but when you start a business, you're going to get a lot of people calling you, asking you to join them, and they're going to ask for a couple $100 right after that. Like the BBB called me right when I signed up, saying, "Hey, you're a great business. We need you." I'm like, "I've only been open 2 days, man." But the whole point is, hey, give us a couple $100, we'll put your name somewhere. So I was, I'm really, my funding's limited, so I had to pick and choose, and my choices were the local Camarillo Chamber, the local university. I work here. I have a lot of student-centered blood in me, so I like helping the school out, whether it's directly or indirectly. So that's why I joined the Business and Technology Partnership, so I can help out that way. But Adobe, that helped me too, because that photo wouldn't have looked that way if I didn't, have that software skills, the photo skills, and the flying skills. So that's why I bring that up, and that's kind of the past 2 years. I'm focusing if I can help magazines out. I'm also got a contract with Sempra Energy. They're a Southern California gas station. They're in the research and development stages with their drones, and they would like to implement them for gas leak detection. And they do have a camera on their drone, but they also have a program that picks up gas leaks. So they don't have much experience on the flying end of things. The data, once I learned Pix 4D, drone deploy and all that, they don't have much experience in those kind of things, or just being out in the field letting you know that your batteries need to cool down before you recharge them. So the research and development stages wants to fix all those little kinks in the hoses before they implement it into the real world. So I've been ever so lucky to kind of consult with them, and they have a micro drone. It's a huge thing that I've been able to check out, and it's really neat. And I think it's going to be, I like data collecting. I like flying drones and collecting data and using it for these types of things. And finding, when we look for gas leaks and we find a little leak on the Excel sheet, because it just tells you numbers. Hey, there might be a gas leak over here, over here, and it tells you to go walk over there, and you find a dead rabbit. And because it was all that decay was leaking off enough, whatever it is, and the program picked it up. So it's amazing how these little laser detectors can even pick up a dead animal, or a little leak here, or a little leak here, instead of having to walk 100 acres and trying to find something with a little, it almost looks like a little metal detector, but it's a gas detector that you're just flying it now. So it's real neat, and they do have some software out that's coming out where you can fly missions that follows the elevation. And I think that's real neat. Sun Construction, they actually did the housing over here at Santa Rosa, the dining commons, and they flew their drone out here one day a couple months ago, maybe a year ago now. I said, sweet. So I found out who flew it, and I said, can we sit down and talk? And we ate some lunch, and I said, I'm trying to pick this up and do, for a living, and I can make you a map. And it took about a year to convince his company to say, hey, I think this is the next step of gathering preliminary data. And so this Sunday I'm gonna be doing my first work with them at CSU Los Angeles, and it's a little 1 acre property that they're having a hard time gathering data on. And then CSU or Cal Poly is doing 100 acres of student housing. That if this works out, that's going to lead to that one. So I'm really looking forward to the 100 acres because I like planning big missions like that. The 1 acres are actually take a lot of planning, a lot of tree cover, a lot of data collecting. Even if it's a small landing, I'm going to be taking a lot of pictures. So I'm glad that I'm working for these two. So out of the 2 years, I gotta say, at the first part of it, a lot of paranoia. A lot of people didn't want to touch the drones. A lot of things going wrong with the fires, people flying over airports, registration starting, and it was real difficult to talk to someone. It was more convincing them that they're a good thing. I want to say the past 8 months, 10 months, I'm not convincing them it's a good thing anymore. It's like, when are you available? You know, because they're past that paranoia part. And as a whole, I ran into people that use them, but if I want to go to a magazine place or a social media place, they're very paranoid about it. But now I want to say those doors are starting to open up a little bit better, and it makes it a little bit easier for me. Tomorrow's drones, actually this is an old picture. I think they're already doing some of this stuff. I don't know if I'm going to get into this, but they have multiple drones flying up now, you know, dancing in the air. I think they did it at the Super Bowl. That bigger picture to the right are actually multiple drones making a bridge from one point to another. And so they were in need of making an emergency bridge to have people get across. They had 3 drones, you only see 2 here, but 3 drones worked together and spider-webbed a little walking bridge for some students, and I forget what university it was.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then, you know, that bottom one's Inspire. I think they're bringing a life jacket to someone just for rescue. Delivery. I don't know if I'm gonna get into delivery. I'm really interested to see how delivery is gonna be. I know there's gonna be a lot of things. They're gonna need cell phone coverage, a lot of extra things that our drones don't have right now, before they can disappear on you. But who knows? They might. I might invest in that, but I don't think so. But I think dropping medicine off and all that stuff, it's going to be very valuable. I'm going to let them work out the patch errors for these first when they get released. But they're going to start transporting people. Gosh, I keep seeing this is actually not even the newest design. I think I saw another design already. But this one, they say they can take you from LA to Vegas on one little charge. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna let them do a couple patches first. Thank you guys for letting me talk today. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Questions for Dan?
Yeah, I was interested in that the gas detection. I mean, you know, the guy that lives next door to me is a salesman for one of those companies, and you know, you'd think that would be something that's
Company for the gas company or for the detector?
no, for the detectors. He goes out and he talks, you know, fire prevention and gas detection. He's got all these old machines and fancy things. I mean, that seems like a huge.
There's a company called SeekOps, and it's 2 students from UC Merced. I want to say Merced. And just recently, they created a program, SeekOps.com. It's a little yellow guy that they're putting on drone, and so they don't get the wash. They have little arms on it. And they bought the rights from JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, up in Pasadena. And I know this because they're going to try to get into the Simper Energy. I think they're working out bugs still. I think it's in the research development with a lot of major companies, or even, and I think it will in the next 5 years, maybe 10, get popular because their goal is to start selling these devices, and I know it's probably going to take off from there. It only weighs 0.33 pounds. And it's a short one with a mirror prism, very potent laser. So I think it's going to do good. I think it's going to be about 30 grand for one of these things. But as they start, the cost should go down. But I think it's almost there. Like I said, the past 8 months, a lot of people are more opening up to this world. I don't know if they said, hey, can't beat them, join them, or what happened. But I'm not getting that kickback that I used to. So I think we're just going to see all those statistics that you see. It's going to be the next $1 billion industry. I'm starting to kind of see that. Yeah. But I can SeekOps is who I'm talking to. SEEKOPS.com, and they're right out of Pasadena, and I'm going to watch them closely. 2 students just graduated, bought the rights to this. I don't know how they pulled it off, but I think they're going to be very successful. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you use ground control points when you make your?
I have not used GCPs yet. I'm using manual and auto. The gas company, it's very interesting to bring that. The gas company does. So when we work with them, they use their old GCPs. But what's happening is the Earth is moving so much on them. Their datum, and they call it epic. Their epics are, they're very concerned I don't want to say concerned. They're very careful with their old GCPs because they're not up to date. So yes, I gave them the mapping, but they use their own. They kind of handle it from that on out. But anywhere else I haven't. The only thing I'll really change is the base of the ground, not default by 0. I'll try to follow whatever elevation it's supposed to be at, because that just helps the end user. But yes and no. Yeah.
Several people have asked about study material and things like that for Part 107.
Mm-hmm.
All the Code of Federal Regulations are online. What about just opening the regs and reading through it?
So that is what I call a Bible version of it. It's big, it's long. I almost brought it, but my backpack was too heavy. But they did congest it, and they made a UAV study guide too, made by the FAA. And what they did is they took pretty much the VFR, the Visual Flight Ready stuff, almost copy and paste, but they took cross country out because you don't need to know that. They took like, hey, you have to balance. No, they kept that in there. They just took the stuff that
Extra stuff
the
you
traveling and all that. They took that out, but it's almost copy and paste. And then they added a couple things that have to do with drones, like a paragraph or 2, and I can share that with all you guys in the links. And then you don't have to pay for those schoolings because you can do it online, a couple $100 to do some UAV ready things, but it just depends on what your cup of tea is. If you do like sitting down and reading and go through it, by all means go for it. But I can show you all your options, whatever fits your cup, or fits your what's the word I'm looking for? Just whatever fits your needs. Yeah. I was waking up at 5 every morning for a couple weeks, and just study, and just to get comfy, and I think I took it with you over there. We took our test together. He beat me by 2 minutes, man. He made me hurry up. Yeah.
How was the test?
Huh?
How was the test actually?
They give you you're gonna study about 500 questions, and they're gonna give you 60. And they're gonna cover at each 10 questions in each section. Weather, sectional charts, and the do's and don'ts. And if it's a lot of them is obvious, don't drink before. It's a DMV test. It really is.
Okay.
So follow that mentality and those kind of tricky questions, and if you'll be fine. Yeah.
Pretty much, if you go over the official FAA stuff that they supply, that covers about 80%. And then the rest is just sector charts, and then who is responsible in this case, etc.
But they'll flip. It's multiple choice. But they'll get 2 answers that are very close to each other.
They will.
Again, back to that DMV. Yeah. So just read them carefully. You have plenty of time. You really do. But just go in there with a positive attitude, and and having someone rushing you, behind you. Don't let them worry you. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't that bad. But don't worry if you do fail. They let you know what questions you missed, and that's a 2-week cool down, and you can regroup yourself and get back in there. Yeah. And by all means, if you guys do want to start a study group or anything regularly, or I'll be more than happy to sit down with you guys, and we can regularly do that. Yeah.
Sounds like a new business venture start.
So I am working with a couple. I don't know how it's going to go, but Sempra, they're very concerned. A lot of people want to join their drone program. Well, have you flown a drone? No. But I'm an engineer, because I have a lot of engineers over there. Well, do you know about this? That? No, I just want to fly a drone. So they're very concerned about getting the right crew. And so them knowing that I have a relationship out here, they're not they're not against the idea of creating a course through extended education, teaching them the book, going out to the field over here, getting some stick time, and then guess what? They have potential interns, or hey, you have a job waiting for you. So I'm at the it's going, and I do got some interest in it. I just I would love to see that. Ventura County, I think they have a class, but it's more designed the high schoolers, I think. But I can see it following almost that same structure over here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we have one approved already. We haven't done it yet, but so you totally just plug into that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, we have the plan was to do 3 different options. One would be just like a Pix 4D thing, which would be a couple-day workshop where teach you how to do it, and then we'd have something like a 3-hour thing, just like intro to drone safety, where you wouldn't really even fly, just sort of run like presumably for like after Christmas, getting a bunch of people buy stuff. So you know, you just make sure you go through this, and then one that's a little more in depth about do the safety and then actually fly for a couple days. But we haven't. But it's flexible enough that it could totally become a 107 prep or something or whatever too.
Yeah, and I think the demand is just going to get increase. And whether they want to take it commercial or not, they might just take it for to be a better hobbyist or a better traveler. A lot of people that I've seen in social media just travel and love taking it with them as a tool. So yeah, absolutely. So
Cool. Other questions? All right, let's take a quick 5-minute break and a stretch. And thanks, Danny.
thank you guys.